The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the Carter Corporation's executive suite, reflecting off the glass walls and polished marble floors. Amelia Vance stood there, arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the man cleaning her office floor with quiet determination. The faint scent of lemon disinfectant filled the air, but beneath it lingered something else, a sense of quiet pride. He didn't rush, didn't cut corners, and didn't flinch even when he knew she was watching. His name was Noah Reed, a single father who had recently joined as a janitor after losing his previous job at a manufacturing plant. To most people in this gleaming corporate tower, he was invisible. But not to Amelia. She had seen hundreds of employees pass through her company, some desperate to impress, others quick to flatter. But Noah was different. He never asked for favors, never complained, and never tried to be noticed. It intrigued her, though she would never admit that out loud. After all, she was the youngest female CEO in the company's history, known for being sharp, disciplined, and emotionally impenetrable. To care about an employee like Noah would have seemed unprofessional. And yet here she was, watching him through half-lowered lashes as he wiped the last streak of sunlight from the glass desk. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of unseen goodness, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. Amelia had been warned about being too curious. Her mentor once told her, "Power isolates you. Amelia, be careful not to mistake curiosity for compassion." But curiosity was exactly what she felt toward Noah. She had overheard pieces of conversation, how he left every day precisely at 3:45 p.m. to pick up his little daughter from school, how he often refused overtime despite the desperate need for extra pay, and how the security guard once saw him sitting outside in his car, staring at a photo before starting the engine. There was a story there, and Amelia, who built her empire on understanding people's motives, wanted to know his. One day, an unexpected power outage forced the office into partial darkness. Amelia had been working late on quarterly reports, her eyes burning from the glare of her laptop. She hadn't realized Noah was still there until she heard the faint creak of the mop bucket. She turned her head slightly, catching him through the reflection on the dark window pane. He moved quietly, almost respectfully around her desk, his expression tired but patient, as if every motion was a silent act of endurance. That was when an idea came to her, a strange, impulsive idea that even she couldn't fully explain. What would he do? She wondered, if he thought she was asleep. Would he take something from her? Whisper something under his breath about his boss? Or would he do what most people did when no one was watching? Let their real selves show. So the next day, Amelia set her plan into motion. She intentionally stayed late again, leaving her office light dimmed, reclining slightly in her chair. When she heard the soft wheels of the mop bucket approach, she let her eyes drift closed, pretending to have dozed off. She steadied her breathing, heart beating faster than she'd expected. For someone known to be fearless in boardrooms, she felt strangely nervous now, sitting in this quiet, sunlit office as the single dad began cleaning around her. For a long moment there was silence except for the faint squeak of the mop and the hum of the city beyond the glass. Then she heard him pause. A long exhale. And then, to her astonishment, the sound of paper. She peeked through her lashes. He had found the crumpled letter she'd left accidentally on her desk earlier that day. It was a confidential one, from the board, questioning her leadership, suggesting she was emotionally detached and too rigid to inspire. Amelia had been crushed by it, though she hadn't shown it to anyone. Now Noah stood there, holding the paper, reading just enough to understand its tone. He didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He simply folded the paper back carefully and placed it where it was. Then, what he did next made her freeze completely. Noah stepped closer, his gaze softening as he looked at her sleeping figure. And then, with quiet sincerity, he whispered, "Don't listen to them. They don't see what you carry alone." Amelia's throat tightened. He thought she was asleep, yet he spoke to her like someone who understood invisible burdens. He didn't know her. He had no reason to care. Yet there it was, pure, simple kindness in a world where people only spoke kindly when they wanted something in return. The next morning, Amelia couldn't stop thinking about that moment. She wanted to confront him, thank him, or maybe just understand how someone who had lost so much could still offer compassion so effortlessly. But when she went to speak to him, he was gone, left early again to pick up his daughter. The security guard mentioned he walked an hour to her school every day because he couldn't afford gas that week. That night, Amelia drove to a small neighborhood on the city's outskirts. She spotted Noah walking hand in hand with a little girl wearing a faded pink backpack. The girl was laughing, showing him a crayon drawing she'd made. Amelia stayed in her car, watching as they entered a small rented apartment building. There was no bitterness in the way he lived, only quiet resilience. Over the next week, Amelia found herself noticing him more. When other staff ignored him, he smiled anyway. When the coffee machine broke, he fixed it without being asked. And when she accidentally spilled her coffee one morning, he was the one who appeared with a towel, saying softly, "Happens to the best of us, ma'am." That night, Amelia found herself thinking about her own childhood. Her father had built his company from the ground up but had lost his soul in the process. Cold, calculating, and never home. Amelia had promised herself she would be different. But somewhere along the way, ambition hardened her. She had forgotten what warmth looked like until she saw it again in the eyes of a janitor who still believed in goodness. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled into the office, Amelia asked Noah to stay after hours. He looked nervous, unsure if he had done something wrong. When he entered her office, she smiled faintly and said, "You don't need to mop today. I just wanted to talk." He nodded quietly. "Of course, Miss Vance," and Amelia hesitated, unsure how to begin. "No, I owe you an apology. The other night, when you thought I was asleep, I wasn't." She saw him freeze, embarrassment flooding his face. "I overheard what you said." He lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean any disrespect." "No," she interrupted softly. "You didn't. You said something I needed to hear." There was silence between them, filled only by the ticking clock. Then Amelia continued, her voice quiet but steady. "You reminded me that people still see good in others, even when the world doesn't." "Thank you." Noah looked up slowly. "Everyone needs someone to believe in them once in a while," he said. "Even CEOs?" From that day, things began to change subtly. Amelia started small, making sure Noah received a raise, arranging flexible hours so he could spend more time with his daughter, and introducing a new, family-first, policy at the company inspired by him. But what surprised her most was how much lighter she began to feel. For the first time in years, she laughed more easily, listened more patiently, and walked into her office with something close to joy. Months later, the company hosted a community event for employees' families. Amelia stood at the edge of the crowd, watching Noah's daughter excitedly tug on her father's sleeve to show her face painting. When she spotted Amelia, the little girl ran up and handed her a small paper heart. "Daddy says you're nice now," she said innocently. Amelia laughed, holding back tears. "I'm trying," she whispered. That evening, as the sun began to set, Amelia found herself reflecting on how one moment of kindness had changed everything. She had spent years building walls to protect herself, only to realize that true strength wasn't about shutting people out. It was about letting the right ones in. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Every story here is a reminder that compassion can come from the most unexpected places. Before you go, I have a special request. Comment below one kind act someone once did for you that you'll never forget. Let's fill the world with reminders of how goodness still exists. Amelia's company would go on to win awards for innovation and employee well-being, but what people didn't see was the woman behind it. The CEO who had once pretended to sleep only to wake up to her own humanity. And somewhere in that vast glass building, a single dad continued to mop the floors with quiet pride, unaware that his small act of empathy had changed a powerful woman's life forever. Because sometimes, all it takes to melt a heart of steel is the kindness of someone who expects nothing in return.